The future is bulletproof. The aftermath is secondary. It's time to do it loud and do it proud. Killjoys, make some noise.
Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to the Micflayers podcast, coming to you today from the information superhighway. My name is Martin O'Dwyer, and I am your host, and joining me, as always, is your host, Conor O'Brien. How are you doing today, Conor?
Super dumb. I'm doing well, buddy. How are you?
Good, I'm good. You look like you enjoyed the intro.
It was good. I liked it. Sometimes I forget that we do intros, and I'm like there. I completely spaced. I was not ready for you to present me with any sort of intro. So when you did, it kind of caught me off guard. That was good.
Good.
I'm doing well. I'm melting because it's 29 degrees here in Ireland, Limerick today, which may not seem like much. It's Celsius, by the way.
Yeah.
You Americans out there, just translating.
It's like 60 something Fahrenheit, maybe. I'm taking a guess.
Fahrenheit? I'm going to check it now. It is 84.
Oh, I was way wrong. Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm going to stick to the one that makes sense to me, which is Celsius.
Yeah. It is very hot, and I don't even know that that's necessarily hot for people that live in certain places. But for us, in a place where we get 2 weeks of sunshine a year, if we're lucky,
and you
we
have
are
to
not equipped to deal
sacrifice
with the heat at all.
You have to sacrifice a class of 18-year-olds to get those 2 weeks as well.
Martin is referring to the fact that it's a common occurrence. What would you call it? Like
Tradition.
It's tradition. Some sort of cosmic tradition that on the 2 good weeks we typically get every single year that are absolute gorgeous blazing sunshine, it tends to be the 2 weeks that the final exams for secondary school students are going on, and they're stuck inside non-air conditioned classrooms with the sun beating through the windows. It happened to me. It happened to me. Almost everyone I know.
Yeah, I'm adamant it's like some long cosmic hangover from like our ancient like druidic past, where like to ensure a good summer, at least some weeks of good summer, that the young were like sacrificed, and it's just like a hangover from that now, where like every 2 weeks, instead of like blood sacrifice, we just make kids go through possibly one of the most stressful experiences of their entire lives.
We just give 20-something 18-year-olds heat stroke instead.
Yeah, that too. Oh man.
I remember that I had a couple exams that I got seated next to the window, and it was rough. I was kind of in the middle of the room for one of my final exams, which was on the afternoon. So it's the second exam of the day, so it's the afternoon exam. I was in the middle of the room, and the sun was just about catching me. The next row over, it was not catching, and we were facing southward as well, so we got all the heat. And it was my technical drawing exam. And I'm there trying to draw with a pencil and a ruler and do my whole thing, and the sweat droplets coming off my brow and dropping onto my page and stuff like that.
Oh god, I can do you one better, because the school I went to was kind of a piece of shit. And I remember I was in on the last day of the leaving cert for our year, because I did Italian, and the last 2 exams were like Italian and like Greek or something like that. Like some
the less common the subject, the further it down the line it's pushed, which means if you do something like French, German, Spanish, you're probably going to get your exam within the first couple of weeks. You might be there on the 4th or 5th week if you have an Italian exam or something like that.
Literally the last exam of the last day. Mm-hmm. Oh, I was.
Everybody else is already out.
Literally everyone I knew was out getting drunk. Everyone I knew was out getting drunk. I was raging. But I remember like sitting in, and the last day, for whatever reason, to break tradition, it was absolutely lashing rain, and there was a leak in the ceiling of the assembly hall that we were doing the exams in, and because it was Italian, there was only like 14 or 15 of us there, so like we were all kind of seated in a square with like spaces between so people couldn't copy and whatever. But like the table ahead of me, I just started seeing this drip, and I didn't pay it much attention. And then like it just continued, and then I started hearing it during my exam, and it would be like sploosh, sploosh. And I was like, what the fuck? And I looked up, and the entire table in front of me was completely covered in water, like about like half an inch of water on the whole table. And I just looked up, and it wasn't leaking from the roof; it was leaking down through the roof Do you know those big, like, square, boxy, fluorescent light tubes that they put
Oh,
way
no.
up? It had half filled one of those, and it was leaking out of a hole in the corner of the light tube straight down onto the table. And, like, I remember one of my teachers passed me by, and I was like, put my hand up because, you know, I can't speak. Put my hand up, and he was like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "Someone's going to get electrocuted." And just like pointing straight up at it, and the teacher was like, "Oh, okay," and then like disappeared out the door. 5 minutes later, came back in and was like, "Could everyone please pause writing on their exams for a moment and move 3 rows to the right?"
Oh, I remember. I think it was junior cert, and it was the very last exam. I want to say it was like CSP or something like that, or it was CSP, and it was an exam I was not doing well, and I'm pretty sure I was copying off my friend Thomas next to me, because it was the page where they show you a bunch of politicians and they like name these people, and then I had no idea who anyone was, so Thomas kind of pushed you.
You might not want to admit to cheating on a state exam.
I'm almost 30. What are they going to do to me?
Not let you have a driver's license.
Oh no, I'm pretty sure the statute of limitations is done on this. I was like 14 at the time.
Okay. We'll just keep that in mind when you're editing this episode.
Yeah. I will check it after the podcast.
Do some googling.
Yeah. But I remember, because it was the thing was, right, it was the last day of exams, but we were all told that after the final exam was done, we had to come back in and finish our classes for the day. It might have been our mocks, actually. I think about it.
That would make sense.
It was like our mock exams. And we were told we had to go back into class after the morning exam, and then we had to go back into class for another like 3 hours.
Good luck.
Here's the thing: in a year of about 120 people, about 90 people brought in doctors and dentist notes. I kid you not. Like, to the point where the principal and vice principal came in with a selection of them in their hands, and they kind of stood at the top, and they were like, "So there's been a lot of requests to leave early for doctors and dentist appointments today," and everyone's like, "Oh wow, did we all do it?" And they called out a couple of people, just by name. They were like, "Stephen, you have one here. Do you have a dentist appointment today?" So, yeah, miss, I do. I have a dentist appointment at 3:30. And it's like, okay. No one will be allowed to leave unless their parents explicitly come to pick them up. So we weren't allowed just to leave ourselves or whatever. The parents had to come into reception, and then we'd be called to them, right? I was fuming. I'm like, I cannot believe after all the exams, I now have to go back in for like 3 more hours of classes. This is bull. So my friend Thomas got to leave, right? And I was so annoyed. But then on the way home, Thomas and his dad, also named Tom, stopped in the shop on the way, which my mother was working in, and then Tommy Senior let my mom know that they weren't letting any of us go. So on her break, she then drove up and got me out.
Hero, absolute hero. What a hero. Oh man.
I just remember, I like looking back at it, I'm like, it was 3 more hours. It doesn't matter. But when you're like 15, it's like that's the end of the world. 3 more hours of my life. How many more hours do I have? A lot is the answer.
Yeah.
But it just seemed like such a big deal at the time.
Yeah. Oh man, school memories.
Always. I was gonna say always fun, but that's not true.
Same day as that last exam I did, someone used a weed killer to burn a giant penis into the field behind all our classrooms and write "Class of 2011" on it, but they spelt it class CLAAAS.
I know that your school is kind of out in the middle of the country.
It was.
Yeah, and that burning weeds with weed killer is the most country like rebel move I've ever heard.
Oh god, it was so ridiculous. It was such a ridiculous place, man, to be educated. Like it was I could fill a podcast with just absolutely insane stuff that happened in that school, but not today though, because today we're going to talk about playing virtually.
I was thinking, nice anyway. I was thinking that we should do a podcast at some point that's not at all D&D, and we'll just talk about. we'll get questions, or we'll talk about school
and ask us anything,
something like that.
Ask us anything, kind of a thing.
But yeah, sort of. Yeah. That could be interesting. But yes, today we're absolutely talking about digital
playing virtually.
Play. playing virtually. That's the term. Thank you.
Yeah, because I don't know if any of you have maybe been in like a coma for the last 18 months to 2 years. There's been a bit of a worldwide. I know YouTube is a bit weird about this, so I'm going to say I'm going to borrow a term from a YouTube channel I watch and call it the global bastard. Yeah,
you guys are like, oh, Google might be concerned about the P word, so instead I'm just going to use a curse word instead.
Oh no, they don't care about bastard.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Pandemic would have been a much better word to use, actually. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, there's been a pandemic on, and because of that, we haven't.
I thought you were saying that. I thought you were saying YouTube was iffy about the word pandemic.
No, the C word.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, but when it started, if you had that word, if you had the name of the virus in a video, it would get delisted and like unmonetized immediately.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
I guess that was probably to stem misinformation, because at the start no one knew what was going on, least of all people on YouTube making videos. So yeah.
But yeah, as a consequence that we've all been playing virtually for a fairly significant amount of time now. Me in particular, the campaign I'm running, we've actually now done more sessions virtually than we had in person.
I think we're probably at a 66-33 split in ours, give or take. But yeah, approximately.
Yeah.
I think we're on session 68, I think now, and I think maybe 20 odd of them, 20 something of them are since about the 50s are virtual.
Yeah. Also session 68 for my crew. But I think we started playing virtually around session 35. So yeah, we've now just outpaced our in-person sessions. But you know, the reason we're bringing it up is because it's something, particularly now with like the pandemic and stuff. A lot of people have just gotten into D&D, and the only way you can play D&D now, really, unless you happen to have a party's worth of people in your home, is to play virtually. And there's a bunch of different ways you could do it and tools you do. I know there was someone that I used to work with who was in a D&D campaign that were playing virtually, and the way they played it was through Facebook Messenger. They would like literally like almost like a text-based game. Like there'd be
I was just gonna ask, is it kind of like a text-based, or like people do on Reddit forums? Sometimes they have roleplay forums where they'll do it that way instead. Yeah, it's really long game, but yeah,
literally like that. Like the way they played was entirely through Facebook Messenger, because they were all so busy. That was the only way they could play. And like, first of all, genius. Second of all, I definitely couldn't do that. I'm too much of a dice goblin. My dice gremlin activities extend to the virtual realm as well, because I have many virtual dice now.
I couldn't do it simply because I'm a very short-term goals person, and if we were doing that and like after 4 months you guys just about made it to the very first goblin cave and we're about to step inside, I'd be like, right, this just isn't working. I just, it wouldn't be like, it's almost like kind of torturing yourself, because it like, would you rather just not have any water at all, or would you rather someone was just putting a droplet on your tongue just repeatedly or something? Like, you'd like, what? Just give me nothing.
Would you rather have no water, or just occasionally someone spits in your face?
Yeah, it takes so long to resolve literally anything. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, roleplay would go by relatively fast because we all know how fast we can text and how quickly a text chain will just zoom through. Hey, Zoom, that's another platform.
We will discuss later.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, like, it's just, if it came to combat or anything at all like that, it just takes so long, you know.
Yeah, that would be, and like, I think it'd be a lot harder to, like if that's the only way you can play and you all are all willing to play that way, you have my complete and total respect, and particularly to the DM for keeping track of the chaos that would be that chain of messages, particularly if it's anything over like 4 people in the party. That's going to be like down completely the entire way through.
Well, I was just going to say that. I mean, like, when we play in person, obviously, people don't typically talk over one another because, as you know, people can see the immediate reaction of someone across the table. So if you're about to say something, you might notice the other person across the table go, oh,
yeah,
and then you'll go, oh, sorry, you go first, or whatever, and like people will just be in theory, people will just be polite and offer that the other person goes first or whatever. But it gets sorted out. There's a little bit of that when it comes to playing over video, because there is a bit of a delay. So sometimes one person will already be 3 or 4 words into a sentence, and then someone else will start talking because they haven't gotten that person has started talking yet, and it gets a little bit muddled sometimes. If you're talking about a text chain where someone might respond and then not look at their phone again for another 10, 15, 20 minutes, like anything, a huge amount of text could come through in that time, and then like you might have to go back and be like, oh crap, I missed like 20 messages, give me a second there, and then you have to scroll through and read it all.
I took how much damage?
Oh. And like I was just thinking as well, like if you're doing it that again, I commend anyone who because like D&D is such a fantastic hobby, and I do love playing it so much. If you find any way at all to make any version of the game that you're happy to play work for you, brilliant, and I'm thrilled that you're getting into the hobby. But like there's times we're playing in person, and I forget that a certain spell was cast the previous turn when it was only like maybe 30 seconds or a minute ago, let alone if the previous turn came, I don't know, 30 minutes or an hour ago or something, and we're still waiting for this other person, and then they don't read back through it, and they don't realize that person has already cast shields, so their AC is currently 22, and whatever, you know.
I just have this image in my head of, do you know that bit in The Simpsons where Homer's Mr. Burns' assistant, and he's like, have I missed any messages? And he's like, your car has been clamped, you have 30 minutes to come and have your car unclamped, your car has been impounded, your car is going to be crushed in a cube, you have 30 minutes to collect your cube. I could see someone being like, so like they have to go and like get food from, like they have to go and pick up like food from the delivery guy, and you come back and it's like, you take 30 damage, you may need to make a dexterity save, we rolled it for you, you failed, you took another 60 damage, you needed to make a dex save, you need to make a new character.
Has potential to go very very grim very fast.
Yeah, just the death spiral that unfolded in my head there when I saw that, like, I'll be right back, guys, and it's like, okay, the dragon's going to use its fire breath, can I get a dex save from everybody? And you come back and you're like, oh.
Everyone's just putting all you see on your full screen is just sad face emojis and crying face emojis, and you're like, what happened? You scroll up and you're like, oh, I'm dead. Okay.
And an invitation to a new group chat.
yeah it's a really, like, it actually makes me think of something there as well, because like it's marginally off topic, but it's like absentee players or players who just can't make it for a week or something like that. That comes up. We have only a 4-person group, so we typically don't play if one person can't make it, because but if you have a big group with like 6, 7, 8 people, trying to wrangle those cats is is a much bigger job. So like sometimes you may have to play with 6 people and 2 people aren't there or something like that, and that's something I always find a bit weird, because then you have to like does someone pilot that person? Does that person just kind of pop out of existence for the sake of this, and then they're kind of just back, and we'll kind of smooth over the cracks of continuity there, and stuff like that.
There was
and also, do you let someone die in the campaign if they're absent for a week? You know, can someone be killed, or you know, can I think, I don't know, it's a weird one, because like I think a lot of people, not all, but a lot of people might just be like, hey, I can't make it, I'm really sorry guys, it's short notice, you can play on without me, whatever, it's cool.
Yeah.
But then if that character dies during that week just because of the way events unfold, you know, nothing malicious, no ill intent or anything like that, it's just your character was the fighter, so he was in the front line, and then I mean the troll had to attack him, it made the most sense that the troll would attack him, and you know, it just kind of unfolded that way. Do you cut the character a break, or you know, do you say, oh, he's just mortally wounded, and maybe you can play him again in a few sessions time once he's had some downtime to heal up or something like that, you know?
There was a really good solution for this that I saw in an XP to level 3 video from Jacob from that channel, and he was saying he had it was like an entity that existed in his universe, like that was like this thing, I think it was called like the Keeper or something. But basically, anytime because I think he had a large party, anytime where a player couldn't make it, or if multiple players couldn't make it, this like grey door in space would appear, and out from it would come this like hooded figure, the Keeper, with a lantern that would lead the players who couldn't make it into this alternate dimension where they were basically being suspended animation until when they could next join the party, and then the keeper would lead them back out again.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea, and it kind of just it's that's essentially the you pop out of existence thing, but it's a little bit of a lore reason to it.
Yeah.
I think it's not too bad. That's not a terrible one. That kind of happened to you very early on in our very first.
I got a magic item out of it. I was delighted.
Well, yeah, because you had like a story thing where when you got pulled out of existence, you were torn into the elemental plane of ice for some reason, and then when you came back, you had a spear made of pure ice that did like a D4 extra ice damage.
D6, I believe.
D6,
yeah.
And we were like level 2 or 3 as well. So.
I think we were just 3. Yeah, it was pretty sweet. Was pretty. We also had the necrotic sword that could cast Dimension Door. That also did like a D6 necrotic. So like all our melee fighters had some pretty hefty weapons for early level.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was fun. But yeah, going back to talking about playing virtually, the basic tools that you're gonna need to kind of get this together will be like if you really want to give it a shot, you could try the Facebook group chat thing that I mentioned. One of my friends I used to work with did. But personally, what I would recommend, get some kind of video conferencing program, get a headset with a mic, and then like a PC, a tablet, or a phone will even do, because you can get pretty much all the programs on a phone as well. And then just like get a group of people together who are all willing to do it, and you'll also probably need like a virtual tabletop as well to play. And we can get into some of the what that is, and what ones we use and what ones we think are good and what ones are just out there in a little bit. But currently, so we all our setup for your campaign at the moment, Conor, is
we use Hangouts, Google Hangouts, which is free, or you can just make a Google account and you can just join into any Google Hangouts and use the web thing. It's probably not the best one, but it's good. It works for what we need it to do. It has a chat and we can mute ourselves and stuff like that. So I mean, it has all the basic functions there, and again, it is free, so can't really complain. And then as for like a virtual tabletop, we do use Roll20, which I was somewhat reluctant to use at a time. But when the pandemic first hit, I was kind of like a little bit reluctant to play digitally. I'm like, no, we'll wait it out, and in a couple of months' time or in a few weeks' time, we'll be able to play and it'll be grand. Little did I know, 18 bloody months later, we'd still be in this. But I caved after a while and stuff. It's just and I started the thing that bothered me, I think, about it was just that although Roll20 is a really robust tool, and now I quite like it. I like it quite a lot. It was an extra thing I had to learn, and an extra thing I had to prep as well before a session, because what I loved about playing in person is that I have one of the the wet erase mats you can put on a table, and they have all the hexes and the squares already on it. So no matter what encounter you guys come across, I don't need to prep it in advance or whatever like that. Some of them I do. If it's a boss fight, I'll do something slightly bigger maybe. But I liked that I was able to just take the pen, draw the rough outline of the room, put in a couple of hazards. This is a pillar. This is a doorway here. This is the corner, and I'd put throw a couple of random minis down that I have on the shelf waiting, and then we're good to go in a space of about 5 minutes, less even. Whereas when it comes to Roll20, it's really, really good, but it's not, for me anyway, it's not the kind of thing that I feel that if a combat came up that I wasn't planning, that came out of left field for me, I wouldn't go, cool, let me open up Roll20 there and I'll put something together, because it would likely take me 15 minutes, if not 20 minutes, to put something decent together that would illustrate what we're doing and stuff like that. So
yeah, no, it definitely there's definitely like an extra level or a barrier with playing digitally, and it comes up in many ways. Like you already mentioned, there's the inherent kind of delay on comms, pretty much with every video software you use. Like the most common ones I know people have been using for D&D recently, Zoom, which the major drawback to Zoom is, unless you have a professional account from maybe like your job or something, they limit you to 45 minutes for the call. So the call will just kick everybody out and you'd have to restart every 45 minutes, which is a bit of a pain.
What does a Zoom Pro account go for now?
Oh, I'm honestly not sure, because as soon as I didn't have one, I switched over to another thing. I also use Google Hangouts for my games. I find it, like Conor said, very, very easy to use, straightforward, has pretty much all the tools I would need, and also, you know, it has fun stuff like virtual backgrounds and attached to it. So like, if your players want to, like, if you have like art of your character or something, you could put it up behind you, or just like thematically appropriate kind of backgrounds. We always do that kind of stuff in our games, and sometimes just do it to make each other laugh or try and put Conor off when he's narrating. That's usually good crack. And Discord as well, of course, which is actually what we record the podcast on as well. But Discord has a lot of really, really good features. It's got lots of really good, like you can have multi-person video calls as well, multi-person just voice calls, there's text channels, everything like that, and Discord is also free. And Conor, I think, may have the price of a pro Zoom account for us right now.
Yeah, so they have it. There's a few different ones here. There's like pro, business, education, and stuff. The pro one, it can be from 1 to 9 licenses, and if it's one license with a pro account, it comes in at €13.99 a month, or if you get an annual one, you pay $11.66 a month. If I'm reading this, yeah, I think if you opt in for a full annual, you pay slightly less on it. So you're talking about
£100+ a year,
120, 130 for a year. I mean, I know it's a good program and stuff. I've used it. Other people who have it for work and stuff like that, and I know it's quite robust and quite popular. I didn't know that I could justify paying that.
That's
personally, but
I when you said $13.99, I thought that was like, you know, that's the price. I didn't realize it was a month.
That's monthly. Yeah.
Because I was about to go, that's kind of good. And then no, because that's like what that's 12 13s, or if you get the the annual version, that's still 12 11s. So that's gonna come out at like 120, 130 quid.
Yeah, it's still a lot. Like I said, if you have the money and you want a good one, and I would think that the problem is you'd all want to be willing to buy it is the problem, and that's the thing. It's not a case of just a DM can get it. Everybody there would have to, or
no. As long as one person has a pro Zoom account, they can host the call and invite everybody in.
So that's actually not too bad. Yeah, 'cause I think my friend Ari did it for a few quizzes and stuff like that during the lockdown. Aaron has a pro one at the time, so we were able to do the long calls and stuff.
Yeah, I used to have a pro.
I mean, if one person's willing, or one person has it just for work, because it is a very common workplace video chat thing. Definitely use it, because it is, like I said, it's really. Yeah. I'm pretty sure one of the big selling points that they push is that they have very, very low latency, so you don't get that. You don't get that delay in audio and stuff like that.
You still are at the mercy. One of the biggest things as well, and this applies to pretty much every video conferencing software, you are all at the mercy of your ISP. So if your internet is having a bad day, regardless how good the program is, you're still going to have some issues, and there probably will be some latency. I know it happens to us a lot, because we have players on the same. Actually, in my game, I have players on the same connection. And like, so if there's a problem with one player, there's a problem with 2 players, and that happens in our game as well sometimes as well. So like, it's just things to be aware of, I suppose, when, like, regardless of what program you choose, you may have issues just because of your internet connection or something similar. But overall, I think if you had to pick one, Conor, if you had to Discord, we'll say like Discord, Skype, Google Hangouts, I think you can actually do video call through Roll20 as well. But we never took advantage of it.
You can. It's not great.
Yeah.
The audio quality and even the video. What it does is it does the thing where it kind of shoves you into the corner, as if you're playing like a top-down isometric RPG where all your characters are listed on the side or something like that. It does the thing where it shoves you all into there, and it has your video and it has audio. In my experience and what I've fiddled around with it, it's not particularly great. So I wouldn't recommend it, which is, you know, kind of annoying that you have to have Roll20 and another program open, but it is better, in my experience, to use a third party in that sense.
And a bit of a disclaimer, I suppose, both myself and Conor have only ever used the free version of Roll20. There is a premium version of Roll20 that's got a lot of extra features. I'm not too sure what that costs a month. Connor, could you do
I'll
a quick Google first? But I do know it's got a lot of like they've got like special lighting tech and stuff like that. They're all included where you can do like really dramatic lighting and stuff like that. And lots of other kind of extra tools that you can kind of use to just I suppose add a little extra spice to your D&D games when you're playing Roll20. Because I think it is fairly like you can do theater of the mind, but personally I think it's fairly necessary to have at least some of the time a virtual tabletop just to like keep the immersion, I suppose.
I'm just looking here. So there's obviously the free one. This big long list of stuff you get here now. There's a free one. There's a plus one, which is either $5 a month or 60 quid for the year. Or there's one that's a pro one that is $9.17 a month or $110 for the year. And it has like the pro and the plus have things like no loading screens or no load screen ads. Sharing table features, dynamic lighting, Roll20 reserved for war, whatever that is, custom character sheets,
a bunch of premium
API
assets,
access, stuff like that, all access character vault. Oh, that's right. I think the all access character vault, they have tokens on their platform that if you pay for the higher thing, you basically get these premium tokens that are on their thing, and they are very, very good quality tokens. The illustrations are very, very good.
I'll say as well, actually, even for the free version of Roll20, I've used it a ton. Like the tokens are actually pretty good. You won't always find exactly what you need, but you can usually kind of get something close enough, and then maybe like change the color of it or scale it up or down, and you can kind of work that way.
Not to do. You can put name tags on things as well. So even if you need a knight, and this guy looks a little bit more like a bandit, you can just put knight on the little name tag below him, and you'll remember that way as well. So it's not always 100%, but I mean we do that with minis as well. You don't always have a mini that matches exactly the character you want, but you're like, this guy's technically an elf, he's not a human, but he'll do for the situation, you know.
Oh yeah, I actually don't own any D&D minis. Even when I'm playing in person, I use the Paizo bestiary box tokens that are like they're like a little paper slot thing you slot into a base of varying sizes and stuff like that. So like I think like Roll20 very, very, very strong for like the amount of features it offers. You can like if you want to just do like, because I know a lot of people when they do like in-person playing, I did as well, we have the dry erase battle map. You will just do kind of a more geometric kind of map where it'll be like, oh, this is the wall, these circles are pillars, this box is the stairs, and like you can do that on Roll20 if you just want to do that, because they have various kind of like you can draw like various shape drawing tools and stuff like that. But if you want to get into the more kind of like almost like what would be the virtual equivalent of like almost like a Dwarven Forge or something like that, they have all these like they have like very specific like background tiles. Like I did one where it was like a ship combat, so I could like put like a whole ocean underneath it, then put a ship on top of it, and then put all the figures on top of that. And then like if you want to, you can do stuff. You can do like Fog of War. Like you used a really good dungeon crawl for us recently using the Fog of War tool.
Yeah, I hadn't used it previously, and I kind of stumbled across it. And it is exactly what it says it is. It's one thing that if we do go back to, but not even if, but when we go back to playing in person, I will miss, because for me to do a Fog of War in person means building out the map or drawing out the map and all the different rooms on paper or on the wet erase or something like that, and then either having the rooms segmented that I can go, okay, currently you're in this room. Okay, you opened the door, there's a corridor, and I place down the next piece of paper that's the shape of the corridor or something like that. Or the alternative then is to throw like black pieces of paper or just other pieces of paper over it so people can't see what's coming next or what the rooms look like next. And that's just kind of very finicky to do. This Fog of War feature is actually really, really brilliant, because I was able to draw out a full dungeon and have the guys go through it room by room, and I can even manage it right down to like exactly where they're standing. If they're like, I go just to the edge of the doorway and I look in and I'm like, cool, I will draw a line, a very specific line across the room on your specific cone of vision, as if you're playing like an isometric game like
old school Metal Gear
3 or what's the other one they have? It's Obsidian make it. Deadfire, Pillars of Eternity.
I went straight to the vision cones from Metal Gear.
Or that, yeah. But yeah, Pillars of Eternity do it as well, where you can if you turn a corner, you'll see the line pivot with your character that represents their field of view and stuff like that. But you can do that very, very literally with your players and stuff. And that was probably one of the better dungeon crawls I think we ever did, because we were able to manage it so well like that, you know.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. Like, that's definitely one of the big advantages of playing virtually. I could see someone even like playing virtually if they just like, you know, they don't have any tokens, they don't want to buy a battle map. Like, all you really need is Roll20. I think you can even roll dice in it. Like, if you don't have dice, because it has a virtual dice roller as well. One thing I will say about Roll20 is if you're using it to roll dice, some of the commands to roll dice are a bit finicky. They're a bit detailed. Like, I remember, like, when I figured out how to roll advantage on Roll20, it looked like a maths equation. It was like these two big brackets. It was like KH20 plus 1 and KH20 minus. I was like, what does this even... I don't understand what it means. All I know is it means I'll roll at advantage.
Actually, let me just check there now. I don't think so, but... Yeah, I don't think Roll20. I'm just looking at the other premium versions and stuff like that to see if they have an additional option that's good. Like, because if you do it on D&D Beyond,
yes,
even excluding the fact that they have the 3D rendered dice and stuff like that on screen, forget all that. You can still just click into a menu, click the amount of D10s you want to roll, and then hit roll, and it does it very simply. It doesn't have to be again rendered in 3D and roll across the screen and stuff like that, which is a nice feature, but. I'm surprised that Roll20 hasn't just built in a click how many d6s you want and then click the roll button and stuff, because it would seem if all the code is already there, you just have to assign that code and that command to a button, and then that button will
It's because I think the command to do that in Roll20 is very, very short. It's one of the things with Roll20 I actually like, is if you want to roll like 10d10, you just go /r 10d10.
Yeah.
R slash 10d10.
I would like to do. That's all. I'm lazy. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm lazy.
But the work in like hitting the D10 button 10 times versus going r/10d10.
Yeah, but see, then you gotta like type it and you're pressing multiple different keys, whereas if you just click the same thing multiple times, it's the same action over and over again. So I don't know.
So we know which of the 7 deadly sins Conor would be.
Yeah,
oh god, I'm gluttony for sure. But yeah, in terms of I suppose it's probably a good time to bring it up because you mentioned it there. Probably what I would consider the most useful tool we have at the moment for playing virtually. I know there is a cost associated with it, but it's I would consider it very worthwhile, and that is D&D Beyond, which is the official digital tool set from Wizards of the Coast for D&D. We've been using it for the entirety of our current campaign with you.
No, we swapped over partway through.
I thought we changed over.
Yes,
we were
still playing in person, so it was pre-pandemic.
It was quite early though. We changed over though, wasn't it?
Yeah, you guys are.
It was like first 3 levels, I think. Like.
Yeah, level 3, 4, 5. Something. It was early anyway. And I was kind of reluctant to move to this thing because we already had a different application that we paid for. It was only cheap. It was like $1.99.
It was €2 for like the professional version, which was grand.
Yeah, and it had all the character, all the classes, all the races, all the stuff you need on it. It didn't give you as much as D&D Beyond, but if you have a book next to you, you can look something up anyway, so it's no big deal. So we used that for the entire last campaign, and then for the first few levels of this campaign. And the only reason that there was a big sale at one point on all the D&D books, and it was probably the biggest sale they did. And I remember Gavin told me about it, and he was like, "Oh, you should go on and grab a few books now," and because he had started, only just kind of getting into D&D, so he was immediately jumping onto D&D Beyond, whereas I'd already bought all the physical books and stuff up to that point already, and I'm like, I don't want to be doubling down on purchases and all this, but I got them at such a good bargain that I decided to move over then. And when I started using it, there's so many features, and they continue to add features to D&D Beyond. It's our main tool now. Even when we go back to playing in person, we will still track all our character sheets on that application.
Yeah, it's just too useful. Like, I think the only thing that will be abandoned from it when we do go back to roll in person will be we'll definitely be rolling physical dice again.
Yeah.
Which is
I might use it occasionally because monsters tend to roll multiple dice more often than players do. and I don't want to have multiple, dozens and dozens of dice in my tray or whatever. But I typically keep a tray of this size. That's 2 full sets there, and that's usually enough. That's usually all I need. And I'll roll them in person.
Slight swerve from the point here, but do you remember the time when Mike got off a full damage delayed fireball, and we had to like get D6s from everyone at the table, like everyone cleared out all of the D6s.
Oh yeah, me, the DM. I had to give him my D6s so he could roll X amount. How many D6s?
I think it was 20 D6.
I'll double check the fireball now.
I know I know we have a video of it, and he rolls 19 of them into, and it's just the sound it makes is like hail on a tin roof, and then there's just one left and he just like flicks it in and it just lands. It was just like the most ridiculous thing to see in person. Was like 20 D6 is possible in D&D for a player. It was just like, what?
1 second now. So there's 12 D6s at a base. If at the end of your turn the bead has not yet detonated, its damage increases by a D6. So, and it lasts for its concentration for a minute. So it's 22, because there'll be 10 additional D6 on top of that. And if you cast it it's a 6 level spell? It's a 7 level spell. So if you cast it 8, 9, you can cap out at 24. But I think Mike did 22.
Yeah. That was so absurd.
D6. And we were like, oh, you can like use a dice roll, and he's like, no, give me all your D6.
Yeah. Oh god, man, that was absolutely absurd, and I loved it.
Loud hearing that many dice fall, but yeah, the best part about that is that he was actually fighting Yi at the time, because I had him under.
Oh yeah.
Ease.
I guess.
Yes, that was.
I think it is. Yeah, that's how I've always said it, so I'm sticking with it.
It does sound better than geese.
Yeah. No, I think it's with a guess, because I think it's like a Celtic word in its origin.
Okay. Well, yeah, but he was. I had that done to him by the bad guy, and then he was defending the bad guy from Yi. And I think he cast it on the dwarf rogue, and then goes, now I use. I think he
did roll a bit of stars.
He's a sorcerer, so I want to say he used Quicken spell to cast it as a bonus action, and then he used an action to use his robe of stars, and he goes, okay, now I just go into the astral sea or whatever. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, I'm just gonna go there, and then no one can interrupt my concentration, and I'm just gonna wait it out. And he did.
Oh man, it was nasty. But yeah, to get back to the thing, Roll20, just as a brief breakdown, it's got a basic set of tools that it will give to everybody. We've kind of talked about it a little bit more in our how to get started playing D&D episode, where we kind of went through what they offer as a base on Roll20. But the gist of it is, you're probably better off to buy the books on Roll20, if you're playing virtually.
Yeah.
Because I have 5 or 6 of the D&D books currently, but at one point, as soon as Roll20 became our main thing, I basically stopped buying physical books now, because I just don't have the space for them, and it's just super convenient to just be able to go, oh, what? Jeez, I've like 10 minutes. What do I want the guys to fight today? And just like pull out my phone and pull up the app on the phone and be like, okay, filter by, monsters that can fly, CR 12 to 16, and we'll say like monstrosities, and let's see what's there. Yeah. And like that's actually how I get inspiration for a ton of my encounters. I will just see what's there, and if it looks cool, I'm like, oh, you're fighting this week, boys.
Yeah, you can, and like honestly, that's how I used to spend a lot. I used to spend way more time planning D&D, when I used to use books exclusively, because I would just flick through Volo's Guide and the Monster Manual and stuff like that, trying to see is there any monster jumping out at me this week that I want to put into this place that they're going, and blah blah blah. Whereas now I can still flick through the books if I want, but and sometimes I do, but other times I'll just be like, cool, I know they're in a glacier frozen place, and I'm like, cool, and I'll look for because I'm pretty sure you can search by environment.
You can indeed.
And I'll search by environment, and then I'll go probably like, I don't know, maybe a monstrosity, or maybe whatever. Maybe I'll do monstrosities, or maybe I'll do like undead or something like that, and I'll put both those tags in, so it gives me all the monstrosities and undead you might find inside of a frozen Arctic region or something. Then and it does make it way easier to stay thematically consistent when you're planning a particular set of sessions, because you might be like, cool, they're going to this place, I know that this place is full of dragons. So I want all the draconic dragon creatures, everything from guard drakes up to wyverns and then true dragons. I want all those stat blocks, and I'm going to populate this area with them. And you can very, very easily just pull a bunch of dragon stat blocks then and be like, cool, I'll have them fight some drakes here and a wyvern here and all this other stuff. And yeah, it just means I'm not there sitting in front of the television watching a television show, but half flicking through the book waiting for something to jump out at me. It means I can be more proactive and search instead of having to be like, because there's obviously your monster manual, you have your Volo's guide, you have
Mordenkainen's
Song. I was blanking there, but it's in front of me. You have Mordenkainen's, and those are kind of like, those are the three ones I use primarily. But the thing is, there's other monster stat blocks that are in like Tomb of Annihilation and Storm King's Thunder and stuff like that, and some of them aren't even listed in the compendium at the back of the book. They're specifically only on the page in which they show up in the adventure and stuff like that. So you might miss a lot of them, and it's very difficult to search that stat block or whatever. I used to have to use a lot of little tags on the book. And I had to write the name of the monster on it, and then I'd be like, cool, I have these 3 encounters planned, but then like this encounter is like 1 of these creatures and 4 of these creatures like following it or something, but they're from 2 different books. Now I need to have 2 different books open on the table at all times, and there was honest to God, there was sessions where I had my notebook immediately next to it, or my notebook sitting on the right hand page of the monster manual, and on the left hand page is one of the monsters I'm using, and then on a small side table down below I have a little book stand with a page open and the book facing up to me.
I remember this. Yeah, you had like a 3-tier system.
I literally had like 3 source books open for the amount of monsters I was using in a single fight, and I think the third one was like either creature, I think it was Creature Codex, the first Creature Codex book. So I had like 3 big books open and delicately balanced on, and there was a desk behind me, so I had it on my computer desk over my keyboard as well.
Yeah. And
I was there, and I was trying to like bounce back and forth between 3 different books all over the place, while also trying to run the session in front of me. Like, I would D&D Beyond, you just don't have that, because again, it's all there in front of you. In an encounter, when you build an encounter, all the monsters are listed, and if you need to check their stat block in the moment, you just click their name, and the stat block appears on the right hand side. It's
Yeah, I would say the 2 probably most relevant and best, actually 3 most relevant and best features as a part of D&D Beyond. Once you have someone who has access to has the books and the access and stuff, and you're in a campaign on D&D Beyond, I'd say the 3 best things you have, they're for both players and DMs. We've got the combat tracker, or the roll tracker, which is just a tab that you can lock in place or open and close on D&D Beyond when you're in a campaign, and it's literally just a complete history of all the rolls done in the campaign. If you forget a roll, you can go back and look it up. It'll tell you what the roll was for. You can click on it and see exactly what you rolled, what your bonus was, and like if someone's like, oh, I used, I cast, did you do the damage for this spell to this guy? Say like you lightning bolt someone, is like, oh, did you do the damage to that? And you look at the guy's health and you're like, I'm not sure, and then you go up and look, okay, that's how much damage that should have been done off this. I have his max health here, I know what he's taken already. Okay, so he did do that, yeah, we're fine. You can like double check a lot of the questions that will come up naturally as part of D&D, because it can be very hard to keep track of things when you've like multiple incoming things to go through. The other one I would mention would be what you've already said, the encounter builder, which is, even though they have it's tagged as in beta, but it's extremely...
I don't know why. I really don't know why. At this point, it's so well rounded. At this point, I don't know why it's still marked as in beta, but whatever.
I think it's just so that if anything does go wrong, they can be, look, it's beta. Beta is beta, and they can fix it. But extremely robust. Lots of really great tools, particularly once you have the books on your digital account on D&D Beyond. I absolutely adore it. And it's great because it'll give you. You've all the filtering options that we were talking about earlier when we were just looking for monsters as included in it. Then on your left hand side, it'll give you like your party. You can and then as you add things, it will tell you what the difficulty scale is on it. And you can kind of like tweak that, and like you can even do stuff like, say if you have like paired monsters, like if it's 2 creatures working as a team in tandem or something, like 2 guards on patrol, you can put them in, so you can add 1 guard, and then you can just click a plus on the guard that's already added, and it'll scale that up to 2, and it will roll them both initiative at the same time.
In the same initiative, yeah.
If you want to do it that way.
They're good for hordes as well. If you have hordes of creatures or
I didn't even think
you
of
can have
hordes.
the whole pack of wolves act in one turn. They all act on the same turn, which is can be interesting.
That'd be really good for what we were talking about last week, which was not last week, sorry, the week before last, which was mass combat. That would be super good for that, because we have a few of the things we're talking about, like using minions and stuff like that. Really, really good. And as well, then just the character builder. The character builder in D&D Beyond is absolutely excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, it has, depending on the resources that you have access to within D&D Beyond, and like you can purchase the books, the source books and stuff yourself, or if you're added to a campaign where someone else already has them, everybody in the campaign shares the books with everybody else, or is it just DM?
Just the DM shares with everyone.
DM shares with everybody. So
like, I have access to books that I don't have because Gavin has them, because you're in Gavin's campaign. He has shared those books with you, and then you DM the campaign I'm a part of, so I have access to those books.
Yeah.
So my players have access to Gavin's books, which is kind of hilarious.
Does it work that way?
Yeah, because I have access to the book, so I can put the monsters in it.
Oh man, okay.
It's this crazy waterfall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I mean, it worked out super well. That, like, very much like if you were at a table, only one person needs to have the source books. Not every single person needs to buy the books. You literally need one player's handbook at a table. There's no need to have any more, really.
Absolutely. And like, if you wanted to, you could even take it as a group thing, where if all of you guys really want to play, you could wait. Like, and to be totally fair to Wizards and D&D, they've put on sales, I'd say, very often.
Oh, they do it monthly, don't they?
Yeah,
more or less.
There's like, I swear to God, like, every second time I open D&D Beyond, it's like 20% off now. Use code this, and then they have bundles and stuff like that as well. So like, they make it very easy actually to kind of collect the books as you go. Like, if you can only, like Conor was saying, like, if you could only say when you're starting up, can only get like Monster Manual, Mordenkainen's Tome, and now I've forgotten it. What was the other one? God damn it. Xanthars? No.
Mordenkainen's.
Yeah, Monster Manual, Mordenkainen's. What was the third one? Volos. Thank you. Volos. Yeah. If you could say you can only afford to get those three when you start, so you basically all the monster stuff, and we'll say like the DMG. Sorry, the acronym was messing my brain up something fierce there.
I know, yeah. There's the PHB, the DMG, the MM,
XTGE, which is Xanthar's Guide to Everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, you say you can only get those. Like, as time goes on, there'll be multiple sales while you're on D&D Beyond, where we're like, oh look, I could get Xanthars for like 15 quid or 10 quid because it's on like some crazy sale, or I could get like 20 quid off it because it's on sale. So they do make it pretty easy to pick the stuff up as you go, and the content sharing is awesome.
I'm just looking at it here. So they also make bundles out of various different books as well, which make it way more affordable. Just for example, the source bundle here, which has Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, Monster Manual, Sword Coast, Volos, Xanathars, Mordenkainen's, Wayfinders, Guild Master's Guide, Acquisitions Inc., and both Eberron books, would normally cost 418 quid to buy individually. It's just shy of 300. It's 298. It's just shy of 300 if you buy them in the bundle, which is still a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but you are getting 10 plus books there, and you're saving yourself about 120 quid. So, and the thing is as well, I could be wrong on this. You might know this better. If you already own a book from a bundle, do they mark down the cost of that book out of the bundle, I think?
I honestly don't know, because I didn't get any bundles when I did the thing you did when they did that massive sale, and I just bought like individual books because the discount applied to each item.
Yeah, let me just double check here now.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I could have sworn that was the thing before. Yeah, I could have sworn this thing before. Maybe I'm misremembering it, but I could have sworn that it was the thing that if you already own 3 of the books out of this 10-book bundle, they will tack the cost off of that. I could be getting mixed up with PSN right now.
I think you might be thinking of PSN.
Because PSN often does that. I could be getting mixed up, but but either way, I mean, like,
I suppose
that's the great thing is if you're sharing, you're all in the same campaign. What it means is that if 4 people want to get together, or 3, let's say 3 or 4 people want to get together, and they're like, cool. The Dungeon Master is like, I'll buy the DMG. Will you buy the Player's Handbook? It only costs us 30 quid each. You'll buy this, and 4 of us will buy the 4 core books, or 3 core books, and maybe Volos or something like that. And then we'll be like, cool, we already have those, and now we're gonna play the game, and it only costs us 30 quid instead of each of us spending 120 or something like that.
Yeah, and as well then like the like we were saying earlier, they have like the virtual on the character sheets. Then you can actually roll on your character sheets. Like pretty much every skill you have will have like a toggle on it where you can click a button, and if you've them enabled, virtual 3D dice will literally roll across the screen for you, which is super awesome. For
Very flashy.
all you dice gremlins out there like me, they're really really good. Just like, and as well, because I know it was a thing that we often ran into with the previous app that we used to load our character sheets on, like class features and stuff like that on the older app, if they would often give like an abbreviated version of the description.
Yeah, it's not the exact word. Yeah, it's like a shortened version.
Whereas with D&D Beyond, because it's the official tool set, like you'll have say like when I look on Lug's thing, he'll have rage, bonus action activate to go into a rage X amount of times a day. If I click on that, it will give me the full list of conditions for rage, what happens when I rage, how rage ends, and all this kind of stuff, everything about it. It will do that for every facet of your character sheet if you want a deeper explanation of what's going on. And I think that is such a good resource for like newer players.
Oh, you can also do you can sort by what type of action it is. You can sort by actions, bonus actions, and stuff like that. So if you take your action and you cast a cantrip or something like that, and then the DM is like, "Oh, would you like to do anything as a bonus action?" You can specifically click on bonus actions, see what you have available as bonus actions, and then decide from there. But it's really great because you don't always have all that information right in front of you. So being able to sort through it really, really, really efficiently is brilliant. And like you said, the ability to just be able to click on stealth. There'll be a little button next to stealth. Click on it, and it will show +7 or whatever, and then it'll roll the dice for you and add the 7 to it automatically, and then it can be very, very helpful. And I think it does streamline things an awful lot as well. So.
Yeah, I like. Obviously, like it's both of our main tools for DMing at the moment, and I think it like the encounter builder has been since it's come out has been my main tool for making encounters as a DM. Because all it's missing is something to make a map in. That's literally all it's missing, and I will not be surprised if in like 2 years there's a map editor in that as part of the encounter builder. I would not be surprised, because the combat tracker was only introduced within the last 6 months.
It's a way. Yes, because they had the encounter builder, but yes, the combat tracker on the side that tells you who rolled what and what they got and everything. Yeah. And the fact that it can be, it only recently was that able to be shared. Previously, it was only your own feed of dice you rolled, but now it's shared within the campaign. So if Martin, if you as the log roll a strength check, everyone else can see what you got in your strength check on screen, which is really, really cool.
And they've also
for transparency purposes more so.
And they've also implemented now only like a few weeks back they put in the option to do GM rolls to roll it yourself, and you can and if you're a player you can specifically roll a dice for the GM only, and only they will see it. It will only appear in the GM's feed.
Which is very, very cool, because there's a lot of stuff like that is hard to account for when you're playing in person. It's easy playing in person. You could just be like, you could say, come here a second, and you bring them around to the backside of the Dungeon Master's screen or something, and you pass them a dice and go roll that there. And then you can see, only the two of you can see behind the screen, so you see what roll take. Cool, you can see it to sit down again. I think that's a very, very cool one. Or like, there's kind of similar stuff where you could message someone something.
Yeah.
When you're working virtually, it's the equivalent of bringing someone into the other room and talking to them or whispering something to them or something like that. And you can just message them on some sort of chat and send it directly to them.
That's one thing.
And then go, I should have rolled this, but only let me see it. Don't let anyone else see that you're rolling a wisdom save or something like that.
That's one thing I'll actually give Zoom a shout out for. I just know it has this feature from work, is that you can change who you're messaging it to. So like, say if we were playing D&D over Zoom, and I don't know, like someone had gotten corrupted, and you're okay, so like they have to make a save, or they're gonna like do something messed up. So you could literally individually message. You can change the message recipient to just this one player, and be like, hey, I need you to roll this. Don't tell anyone. Keep it yourself. Yeah. And then they can message you back directly, and you're the only one who will see that, and you can see all the private messages as well. If you're on a Zoom call, whoever is the host of the Zoom call can see all the private messages that don't go to everyone as well, which is a warning for all of you guys out there if you're using Zoom for work.
If you're using it at work and thinking you're getting away with something sly.
Yeah, because I know some people who've been caught ratting.
Wow.
But yeah, that, like, I think honestly, like, if I was to pick a favorite digital tool of mine, D&D Beyond. it's so useful. It's got so many features.
It's just so core to even. Here's the thing, right? It's so core to playing online. I think it's fundamental to playing virtually. But even playing in person, it's a great way of tracking your character on your phone or your iPad or your laptop or something like that, and not having to. And also, again, sharing your stats. Everyone can see what everyone's doing. The DM. I used to have a thing. I used to have a thing where like I would sometimes need to know someone's stats, but because we didn't have D&D Beyond, I actually don't know what this character's wisdom save is or something like that, and I want to message them, but I don't want to ask them specifically because then they know something's coming for them. So I will either ask everybody what's everybody's wisdom save, and then everyone will tell me, and everyone's like, oh crap, what's he planning now? Or something I would do as well is sometimes I didn't even need to know this information. I would just go to a player and be like, hey, are you resistant to poison? And they would go, no. I'm like, okay, cool. And I'd say nothing. But I would do different things to different people in the group. So I'd say that to you, and then I'd go to Dan, and I'd be like, I'd be like, hey, what's Druidin's wisdom save? And he'd be like, +4. And I'm like, oh, it's only 4. Oh, okay. and then I just play mind games with you to make and sometimes I'd ask all of you in the party, but only one of those is a piece of information I actually need. But I don't want anyone thinking that I'm coming for them next session or anything like that. It's just I have something planned and I don't want to give anything away, so I'll ask everybody a question. And sometimes I just do the mess with you as well.
Yeah, always. Like I know, like before D&D Beyond, I know people who used to have these like crazy spreadsheets that they would update on the reg every time, like the players left. Yeah, you and a couple of other people I know who are DM, that like literally like I'm just like, why this is so unnecessary, but like there should be a solution to this, and thankfully with D&D Beyond there is, and like Cinder's great. You can literally go like, these are the things I can do because of my race. These are okay, cool, that's right. Click over. These are what I get from my class. That's cool. Click over. This is my background, and then like you can literally go and filter all those down, and then further filter them by action and bonus action and all that kind of stuff. It's just, it's so core. It's almost, it's like, it's become ubiquitous to my experience of playing D&D now. Is D&D Beyond?
Yeah. Like, something came to mind there.
And we're not sponsored, but Wizards, if you would like to.
They're not coming close.
No. Not at all.
Jeremy Crawford, if you're listening. But no, I was just thinking there, like, just if we're talking about, to get away from tools for a moment, just virtual playing in general. Something came to mind there about like, maybe like etiquette and stuff like that when you're playing virtually.
Yes.
Like we talked a little while ago about like the delay in the voice sometimes, so you may start talking and then you accidentally cut over someone, and that's far more prominent when you're playing on a Hangout or a Zoom call where there might be a little bit of latency. Be polite, give people their time, and make sure everyone gets a fair turn and stuff like that. But also, other things, like sometimes we get things where there's like static, or someone makes a noise or moves something next to their computer, and then you hear it grinding along the table and stuff, and it's very loud on everybody's mic. Be conscious of stuff like that. In particular, I like earbud headphones that come down with the microphone on the cable. I despise on any call. People wear them at work sometimes as well, and I'm like, put on a proper headset, please, because every time you move, all I hear is.
Yeah, we can't hear any of that because of the sound filtering on our mics.
I'm trying to be so explicit about it. But you just hear the microphone grinding against their shirt, and then it's really loud in everyone's ears and stuff. And also, be on time, because you can say there was traffic when you're making your way to a D&D session normally, but in a pandemic where everybody's at home and all you have to do is go into the other room and turn on your laptop, you better be on time. Like, it's only fair to everybody involved.
Yeah, I would also say another element is just good manners. If you're not talking and you're not expecting to be called upon to talk for any kind of length of time, mute yourself.
Yeah, Mike is exceptionally good for that.
Mike is so good he forgets to unmute, and then we just get a very, very animated pantomime.
Jesus. Mike is really, really good for managing his microphone. Mike and his microphone. He is really, really good for managing his microphone. So like to the point where if he goes into a situation, he will decide, because we did a thing at the end of last session, where you guys went into an abandoned
Yes.
cave or catacomb, whatever you
It
call
was
it.
like a tomb.
Tomb is the best way to put it. And he when I started describing it, it twigged something in his head, and he was like, okay, my character, I'm going to shut up for this because I know stuff my character doesn't about this, so I'm not going to talk. And he muted himself for like a full 20 minutes while we were there. He only unmuted occasionally to chime in on stuff, but he mostly just kept to himself. He's like, I know stuff that I shouldn't because, character player differences. But then there was also like the time
I knew this was coming. I knew this was coming.
Where and this is how good Mike is for managing his microphone. They were in the Underdark. They killed a bat demon. And some cultists, and then there was just this hell portal, like this circular hell portal in the ground that was just swirling wildly. And he was just like, he decided, like, because he was like, is there anything we can do with it? And I'm like, I mean, that's up to you, whatever we're going to do. And there was kind of some mumblings about, do we try and go through it? We don't know where this leads, blah, blah, blah. And he was just like, I stick my head through it. And I'm like, what? He's like, I stick my head into the portal. Now, I know this is a portal to literal hell, to one of the hells. And I'm like, you just stick your head into the far side. So he's like, yeah, I'll do it. So I had no plans. I didn't think anyone would actually do this. So I had nothing ready. And I was like, okay. And it came to mind that I was like, oh, I'll go and look at the long-term madness tables in the DMG. And I opened them up, and I had Mike roll for it. And I had him roll, and he got whatever number. And it was that you are so shook by what you've witnessed that you're unable to speak. You cannot speak or communicate anyway. Speak, I think is just the main thing.
Yeah.
And then I had him roll a D10 times 10 for the number of hours that he's not allowed, or that he's not allowed to speak, and he rolled a 10.
100 hours of silence.
Like 4 full in-game days.
Yeah.
He was not able to speak.
It was about 4 weeks of play as well.
I want to say it was more. I honestly, because that was on the way down.
It was the very least a month. At the very least.
It was a month to a month and a half.
Yeah.
Where so something like 5, 6, 7 sessions where Mike did not speak. He occasionally he would ask a question to me or something like that, but he did not speak in character or have any sort of like input for like 7 weeks, which was major commitment. And he'd be asking me, how many hours have passed, and I'd give him updates, and he's tracking them all on his character sheet. And it was actually funny because at the time you guys had discovered that you found a ring that had the ability to cast a wish, and you explicitly gave it to him because you're like, his character can't speak, so he can't wish for anything. We should give it to him because it's safest with him.
Yeah.
Which is very, very funny. And then I think also when he finally got his ability to speak back, the first thing he didn't speak when he woke up for the day, and he didn't tell you how long he had left, but he knew he could speak at that point. And the first thing he actually said was he let out a battle cry as part of his zealous presence, as part of being a zealot barbarian.
I think so. I think that's what it is. Yeah, zealous presence.
Yeah, and which was an epic way of actually finally talking after like 6 or 7 weeks of not talking.
Yeah, that was rough as well because he had just gotten that ability, and he couldn't do it because he couldn't let out a battle cry. Oh, but that's just not everyone needs to have that level of commitment to mic management.
Mike is exceptionally committed in certain regards when it comes to D&D.
But as a baseline, like say you're taking a lot of notes and you know you're not going to be talking for a while, mute yourself maybe. Or if there's like an important moment going on between two characters, or like the DM and a player, mute yourself because if
your character isn't in the room.
Yeah, or if your character is in the room, because even completely unintentionally, you might knock something, you might get a Facebook message and your phone isn't on silent. You might have a tab open on your computer and it goes bloop in the middle of the conversation. And funny, yes, kind of haha, but it takes a little from the moment. If you can kind of prevent that just by throwing yourself on mute for like a minute, it's just good manners, really. I suppose other good etiquette, like mute yourself if you're going to belch or like sneeze or something like that.
I think that's just good etiquette in all walks of life. Doesn't have to be a D&D game. Could be a work call, could be a general phone call, could be a voice note. Don't burp / sneeze.
Yeah, I know.
Into a microphone when anyone else is listening on the other side.
And you think yeah, I know, and you think that'd be common sense, but Conor, we've both worked in customer service.
Yeah.
You know,
I've had people like blow their nose and stuff like that.
Oh.
And like
God.
they obviously put their phone down. They're not holding their phone here while they're blowing their nose, but like, and it's still loud enough that I can just hear all the elements moving.
yeah. So just be mindful of that. As well, I suppose like just in general, just be mindful of your other players the same way you would be if you were around the table. Just like it's pretty much inevitable that you're going to talk over each other just because of the delay. Either whether that's inherent to the program or just because your internet connections are different speeds. And particularly if you live in Ireland, where internet connections can vary wildly.
Yeah. We have some places that have fantastic internet, and then some places that have terrible internet for no reason.
Oh God, we this country seems insistent on building houses in a dip, regardless of what that does to your internet connection, and it's something I had to deal with growing up, and I've never been angrier at like a city planner for building these houses in a dip. I'm like, you absolute prick! Could you not have foreseen broadband?
Yeah, it's yeah. I had something that I was saying. My mind is gone blank.
Yeah, if you had to pick, I suppose. Oh, sorry. Just one thing I thought would be worth a good mention, just because we kind of only really exclusively talked about like Roll20, Google Hangouts, D&D Beyond, and a little bit about some other like a. Why can I not think of it? Yeah, some other. I could remember.
Platforms.
I could remember the acronym VoIP, but I couldn't remember like video conferencing software.
Oh, okay.
Right. But in terms of like a virtual tabletop, other ones that I have heard of, I don't have any or a lot of or any experience with them really. Would be I know Tabletop Simulator has which is available on Steam. Has I know some people use that for D&D. It's literally like a virtual tabletop that you can see all your usernames around, and it uses in-game physics, and you can actually like roll dice and stuff like that. And I think there's like some either expansions or like DLC you can get for that specifically for D&D. Other than that as well,
it always looked really, really cool, but also like the thing about using tools when you're talking about virtual playing.
Mm-hmm.
The tool has to integrate fairly seamlessly. Sometimes the bigger the tool, where it gives you more options, can actually just be more cumbersome. That's how I felt about Roll20 for a long time.
Yeah.
And when like I said, when the pandemic first came around, I was holding off. I'm like, no, we'll play in a couple of months. And eventually, I'm like, okay, it looks like I'm just going to have to learn a new tool here in order to continue playing, because this thing is not going away. And like again, Tabletop Simulator has some really, really cool. I've seen people using it, and I've seen videos of it, and it does look fantastic. And you even get to see people pick up their dice and throw them on the table and stuff. It looks awesome, but again, that would strike me as one that is maybe, and I have no experience with it. This is purely from an outside perspective of little bits I've looked at. Mm-hmm. It looks like it'd be cumbersome. If everyone's willing, and everyone's willing to learn the tool and stuff like that, then great, by all means. But for me, it seems like the kind of thing that might be more work to implement than it would benefit the game. Yeah, you know.
I think like the three things you're probably looking most for from your tools when you're playing virtually: ease of use, very low or no learning curve, cheap as possible, and consistent.
I was going to say accessibility as in cheap. Yeah, it should be something that everyone has access to. You shouldn't have to have a PC. It should be available on phones and iPads and other stuff as well.
I think that's where Google Hangouts has a big plus, because you can literally use it on anything. Yeah. Like one of our players regularly uses it on an iPad. And it works perfectly fine.
And that player and another player also swap over to their phones mid session. They'll mute their computer or their tablet. They'll mute that, and then they'll open up their phone and join the call on their phone, and they'll bring the phone outside where they go for a cigarette break. And then they're still they're standing outside, but they're on their phone and watching and listening from their phone and stuff like that. And it's really, really fluid. It's just hop on, hop off thing. You know?
Yeah, like we've even had situations where like someone was running late and they just joined the call and muted themselves, but were still in the call for like the short car trip they had to get home, So they didn't miss what was going on, and basically as soon as they got home, unmuted. Hey guys, I've been listening the whole time. I'm in. I'm good to go.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So I think like just for ease and use and just the fun little stuff like the virtual background, which Discord actually doesn't have. Which is a shame because we could have some cool spacey stuff behind us for Micflayers if it did. But yeah, I'd rank Google Meets or it's Google Meeting because Google Hangouts is the one that like swaps every time someone speaks, which I would say isn't ideal for D&D.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. It is Google Meetings technically.
Yeah.
You go into the Hangouts tab. No, that's wrong. I clicked the sheets.
You just open your Gmail inbox, and on the left hand side there'll be a bar, and there'll be a button for like new meeting, and you can just click new meeting and make one and invite people. It's really, really simple, really easy. But yeah, just like consistency, cost effectiveness, and quality are the three things you should never compromise on, I suppose.
Absolutely. And like, I think there's gonna be. I think I'm quite happy with our virtual setup now. I've gotten comfortable. I know what to do. It still bugs me a little bit when I have to try and predict where a session is going to go if I need to plan something in Roll20, because again, you can assemble some great stuff, but it's just taking an extra 30 minutes to assemble a map and put in all the right minis and search for them and stuff like that. It can be a little bit cumbersome. So like I said, it can be hard to predict where your session is going that week, particularly if you're at a fork in the road and you don't know if the players are going to follow this lead or go on this quest or whatever. And you're like, I don't know what to plan. And you don't want to. It's the same as if you work with minis and Dwarf of Forge or something like that at home. You don't want to make like spend ages putting these pieces together and building out this map on a piece of wood or something. And then the players are like, let's go do this other quest. And you're like, that was 40 minutes of my life. But sure, yeah, cool.
Oh god, we had a bit of that in the Spider City in our last session where people picked a fight with us. They really shouldn't have, and it ended very quickly in our favor.
I had an old wood elf town. It was long abandoned, but there was a tear to the Shadowfell there that was kind of bleeding through and making it all a bit haunted looking. And it was also completely overrun by spiders. And the guys killed the spiders, which were all really low level, but they were also shrouded by an illusion, which made it very hard to fight them. I made it a bit of a slog. And then after that, the combat that should have been tough, which was fighting some Shatter Kai, within the first round, our Blood Hunter got two really insane shots from 10 feet out with his longbow, hit this person twice in the chest, and took them down to like, I'd say, a little under 20% of their health in just two shots. And then he was like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I'm like, you know what? You just did about 60 or 70 points of damage in a round there. I'm gonna roll intimidation for me. And he rolled high. I think he got like a 19 on the dice or something like that. And I was like, yeah, no, these guys are like, wow, he's really cool with a bow. Let's not mess with him.
Yeah, a sharpshooter is a hell of a feat.
Sharpshooter is amazing.
But yeah, it is the one thing. Yeah, because I suppose it's just because to play virtually, you kind of it's almost like setting up dominoes, right? So the first one you set up is internet has to be perfect. Then I have my mic, then I have my video conferencing software, and now I have my character sheet. The character sheet 90% of the time will be totally fine. 99% I've never had I've actually never had a problem with my character sheet on D&D Beyond or anything else like that we've used, right? It's the other dominoes, and when one of them falls, they all move over, particularly if the one that falls is your internet connection.
Yeah, that's like the crucial structural joints there, because if that comes away, then everything comes apart. Unless
you're going to go for the the tin cans and string method, from like a house across the street, just being like, I'm going to roll with advantage. For what reason? But Conor, if you had to give, shall we say, like your top 3 like pros and cons of playing virtually, what would you say they are?
Oh, okay. Oh, top 3. Okay.
Or look, it doesn't have to be 3, but just I suppose like things to be aware of, the things you like about playing virtually, and things you think that people you either don't like or that people should be aware of before they go into playing virtually.
I'll start on the cons first before I end on a positive note.
That's a solid idea.
Yeah. Okay, so firstly, and probably one of the main ones and one of the main reasons I resisted, and actually a reason why a different D&D group I was in kind of fizzled out, was because we were playing in person, and there was a massive... Obviously, we were playing the game, having a great time, but there was also a massive social aspect to that, where we all really like sitting around the coffee table and chatting with each other, and we'd take breaks. We played for long. We played 6 and 8 hours. We had long days, but we'd take breaks regularly, and we'd go and grab a cup of tea, and we'd chat a little bit about what's going on, and there was a real social aspect to it. And we'd often order food in and stuff like that, and we'd stop to eat our food, and we'd just be chatting about other stuff. That kind of goes away a little bit, not altogether, but a little bit when you're playing virtually. You can still chat, obviously, and we often do. We start usually at like 7. Well, we intend to start at 7, but we join at 7, and then by past we're like, right, will we start?
Yeah.
Because we've just been talking about stuff that happened in the week, or shows we're watching, or games we're playing, or whatever. So there is still a social thing, but there's a I don't know how to describe it. There's more of a I don't want to say a physical social thing because that suggests certain things, but it's just about being in a room with a person, you know, and
face-to-face interaction.
Face-to-face interaction, and there's no delay in audio. There's no static. Also, with it, shut up. But also, like, you can think about a chat room, right? When you have 4 people in the chat room, all those people are having the same conversation, because only you can't have 2 people here talking. One person is talking and 3 people are listening, and then someone else is talking and 3 people are listening. Whereas if you're in a face-to-face situation, I could be talking to you, and then those people over there can have a conversation to themselves, and this other person could be on the phone because they got a call from their mother or whatever it is, and like it's usually me to call my mother in D&D all the time. But yeah, it's so. But I mean, there's a social aspect to it where it's a bit more interactive, and it's a bit more. It's a bit more human. It's a bit more human. You know, being in the same room as people and stuff like that, and just kind of bouncing off each other and having multiple conversations and all that kind of stuff is you know, for example, to put it in D&D terms, I guess, if the DM is explaining something in a table, if you're in person, the DM's explaining something. Someone can turn to someone and go, "Hey, what do I roll here for this thing here? Is it this and this, or that and that?" And you can have a small little sidebar. If you're doing that in a voice chat, you kind of got to wait for your turn and go, "Sorry, can I just stop things for a second? What am I rolling for this?" And you have to ask. And there's no problem. By all means, you should always ask if you don't know how a rule works. But it's just that could happen way more fluidly when it comes to that's my one. That's probably one of my bigger ones as well.
Yeah,
is there's a certain dynamic and flow that disappears when you're using virtual stuff. It's not bad. It's just a degree less. Like a lot of us now are using, you know, Zoom and Hangouts and all this other stuff as our social interaction, because we can't meet each other in public. And it's kept most of us going, but it's not. No, it's not. It's by no means the same as meeting up with your friends in person, like, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. It's the best possible substitute, and I've been very, very, very grateful for it. Particularly for keeping me sane, and particularly like just for it's been a way to mark the passage of time when everything was very much the same and we literally couldn't leave our houses a while back. But your positives then?
Well, that was just my one.
Oh, sorry.
I'll go way faster.
Please, no, please continue.
That was one. 2, there can be a lot of moving parts for both players and DMs when it comes to playing virtually, because you have your Zoom window or your Hangouts or Discord window open, and then you also have D&D Beyond open in a tab, and you have a separate tab then with Roll20, and then you've got and maybe you have a chat or something else, so you got a bunch of different stuff going on.
I kind of, if I can just interrupt, particularly as well if you're trying to arrange music that everyone can hear.
Yeah, that's you got to share like a Spotify link and stuff like that. Yeah, so it can be, there's a lot of moving parts. It can be a lot to manage as a dungeon master, and even as a player, because again, you've got to come with more tabs and more things signed into and all this extra stuff. Sometimes you're using a laptop and your phone because the call is on the phone, the laptop's here with your stats on it or something like that, and you're kind of juggling multiple devices and stuff. So there's a lot of moving parts, whereas if you're playing in person, there's a lot of stuff for the DM, but the players can basically just show up, and as long as they have their dice and their character sheet, they're good to go, you know?
Yeah.
There's not a lot else after that. Thirdly, as a negative, I'm struggling to find one now. I guess there's a lot of buy-in if you own a lot of the physical stuff. Maybe that's a bit of a buy-in thing, where you got to buy books digitally, or maybe paying for something like Roll20 Premium, where you want to get access to those tokens that they have and stuff. There's maybe a bit more buy-in. Again, that's only if you already play physically, and you now, as a result of the pandemic, you have to play digitally. So that won't affect everybody, but we'll just call it my third. Positives. You get to play D&D.
Yes.
Because again, most of us can't hang out in each other's houses for one reason, mostly for one reason, but because we're either not vaccinated or because there's a surge in cases or whatever the reason is, we can't hang out together. That's a pain. We get to play. First and foremost, positives. You get to play D&D. That's probably one of the biggest things. And then on top of that, I guess positives. It's easy. I'm kind of contradicting myself here, but if you know, like, you don't need to travel, you can just, which makes it super easy if, like, you would otherwise need to travel a half hour to the other side of town, you know, to go to someone's house, and then it's to drive home after it, and it's costing you, you know, petrol money or whatever, or just taking time because there's a commute to someone else's house. Whereas, I know I said there's a buy-in and there's certain tabs you need to have open, but at the end of the day, in some cases it's far easier than traveling X amount of time to get there, wasting X amount of fuel. I won't say wasting, using X amount of fuel to get there, and then having to come home, and it's a lot of stuff like that. Whereas if you can just go, cool, I'm going into the other room, I'm going to boot up my laptop, and I'm going to go, you know, that's nice as well. So if you're someone who wants to play with someone far away, or you don't have access to people around you, best possible thing. Definitely try and get involved in games, you know, so and groups and stuff like that. Third, positives. I'm struggling on that one as well.
I can think of one in particular in regards to Roll20, which is they give you a large variety of tokens and creatures that you can search for in the free version that you may not necessarily have access to physically. Yeah. There is a lot of tools, actually. I suppose one of the positives is there is a lot of tools. We were talking about, you have your choice. We were talking about this just before the podcast actually started. Before we started recording, was the things you'll miss when you go back to playing physically, and there were two you mentioned in particular that I completely agree with.
I forget what one of them was, because only one's coming to mind. The one that's coming to mind immediately is that Fog of War thing on Roll20, because I'm trying to figure out a way I can effectively implement that into my home game that doesn't involve something crazy. Like if I bought a cheap big TV and put it down and then plugged the HDMI of my laptop into it, could I do it that way or something? I don't know. But yeah, like something like that. There's tools like that. What's the other one I
said? The ping tool and the ruler tool in Roll20.
Oh yeah, because sometimes you're kind of there. Yeah, they're super easy to use. The ping tool is, I suppose that's not too bad in person though, because you could just go, oh, I want to move to here, and point at the thing, because it's usually a foot and a half away from your from your hand.
This is true.
But so the ping, the ruler, again, it's not. It's a difference between clicking here and dragging with the mouse, or going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're 35 feet away. You know, so I don't think there's a huge difference in that.
I like it because I can like try and plan things and measure things out and without giving away what I'm planning. Because you can toggle it to be not visible to others.
Yes, okay, that's the third positive. If you're a dungeon master, you can put on GM layers on Roll20, and you can have your Fog of War that you can see through, but the players can't. It's just black for them. And you can hide minis. Like you can have them set to invisible to the players, and then you could be like, suddenly some 4 assassins drop invisibility around you, and it can be a really great moment. Whereas if you're a DM, you have to have those hidden away in a drawer, or like tucked in behind your laptop, and in between the laptop and the DM screen, and they're just tucked away in there, and hopefully no one saw me take those out. So there's definitely a few. There's more tools maybe that allow you to have that separation between DM and player if you want to go for something that is if you want to surprise your players or catch them off guard or something like that.
Yeah, no, I think I just really enjoy that aspect of it, like the extra particular DM tools they give you, like the GM layers, the fog of war, the rulers, the pings, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think the people, I think like virtual play is particularly good as well for like you mentioned, if someone like moves away, or if someone if someone has to go on like a bit, like if someone has to, like, I know like when we were playing with towards the end of like my time in college, like there'd be people who might be like a year behind us in college, and they're doing like placement, and they're moving to like a different city or a different country in some cases, and they're able to continue playing because of the virtual connection. Most of the popular streamed D&D games we were talking about this as well, most of them aside from Critical Role are done through like Roll20 or some other virtual tabletop and a call just like the one we're on now. So I think like it's definitely I reckon it's definitely here to stay. Whether it will be as prevalent now as it is whether it'll be as prevalent in the future as it is now, as I struggle over my words, I would hope not.
Just the heat has baked you, Martin. You can't think straight anymore.
Christ, man, this is the first time. This is the longest I've worn sleeves for the entire day.
I chose no sleeves personally.
And
I'm still roasting.
Yeah, I just thought a vest and like heavily tattooed didn't look extremely professional for hosting my podcast right now.
it's one of we professional.
True.
But Martin.
Yes, Conor.
That's all the time we have for today.
Ooh, it's been a fun one. I really enjoyed talking about that. I think we made some decent points, gave some decent advice. I think it's just become such a normal part of our routine now to play virtually. I think it's good to give like a little insight and kind of advice for people who maybe aren't so used to it, and are maybe running into some of the same barriers that you did.
Yeah, it can take getting used to, and I'm kind of a creature of habit in that way, that I tend to be a bit abrasive when it comes to trying something new, which is stupid because historically every time I try something new I typically like it for the most part, or at the very least I'm not like that was the worst thing ever. Typically I'm like, that was fine, but I probably won't do it again. That's the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like, there's definitely arguments to be said for both sides, and I see that now, having played virtually for many months. But I think that we, I think it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I think virtual, even before the pandemic, there was a big push for virtual stuff. Roll20, D&D Beyond, and a bunch of other stuff were already around at that point to facilitate people who are playing over long distances and stuff like that. So it's definitely not going anywhere. But it'll be interesting to see if they will be, I don't know, more eager to buff up their platforms and provide more service. Like, for example, would D&D Beyond do like a map-based thing, or would Roll20 refine their system a little more, or something like that, because they want to keep up and they really want to corner that digital market.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Just one other interesting thing to note. I saw it in an article recently that the BBC ran on D&D in the pandemic, and I think there was a 200% increase in new players over the course of the pandemic. Wizards recorded, which is insane but completely understandable, and I think a lot of that is to do with the fact that it is a really entertaining game where you get to have social interaction with all your friends, and you can do it online and primarily virtually. I think that's kind of why so many people jumped in the pandemic.
That's a wonderful thing.
And truer words never spoken. But Conor, where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me on the internet, mostly, or sometimes, on Twitter at 0.Conor, ZEROPOINTCONOR, 1N, very important. And you can also find me on the Micflayers podcast every Friday at 6 p.m. Irish time. I don't have my thing up. Sorry.
Breaker, Radio Public, Google Podcasts, and Spotify.
That's the one. On all of those things. Anchor as well.
Anchor also, yes.
Anchor as well. On all of those things that Martin and I just said, you can find us there on this podcast that comes up there every Friday, 6 p.m. Irish time.
Indeed.
Where can people find you on the internet?
Mostly on this lovely podcast, the Micflayers podcast, every Friday evening, 6 p.m. Irish time. You can also find me on Twitter at So Sorry It's Over. And you can also find me on the Micflayers podcast Twitter account, which is at MicFlayersPod on Twitter, which you will find in the bottom right hand corner of your screen, along with links to our YouTube and Spotify accounts. But yeah, that'll be a goodbye from me. Bye. And goodbye from Conor.
Hello, folks.
And we will see you next time on the Micflayers podcast. Bye bye.